The sound comes first. Not an explosion, not a scream. A pressure deep, wrong like the sky inhaling. Homelander is already in the air when it happens, hovering above Manhattan with that familiar, effortless stillness. Cameras are on him, they always are. His cape barely moves, his smile is practiced, controlled, perfect. Then the air folds. Not collapses, folds. Something red streaks past him, not fast, not slow, but deliberate. Close enough that Homelander feels it brush his cheek. The shockwave follows a half-second later, slamming into his chest and throwing him backward for the first time in years. He stabilizes instantly. Of course he does. But his heart doesn't. What the hell was that? He mutters, eyes scanning the skyline. The answer arrives without warning. A man stands in the air 100 yards away. No theatrics, no glow, no sound barrier, just there, arms relaxed, posture casual, eyes fixed on Homelander with something far worse than hostility. Assessment. Homelander laughs, a short one, reflexive. Another one, he calls out. Buddy, you picked the wrong. The man moves. Not toward him. Past him. The city below shudders as a Vought response team van crumples like paper, lifted and set down gently, too gently, before being reduced to scrap by a single careless flick. Homelander's smile fades. That flick wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to demonstrate. You're in my airspace, Homelander says, voice sharper now, louder, commanding. The man finally looks back at him. The look isn't fear. It isn't anger. It's disappointment. Homelander fires his heat vision on instinct, full power, no restraint. The beams hit. They do nothing. They don't deflect. They don't reflect. They just stop. The man sighs, pinches the bridge of his nose, and for the first time since he was created in a lab, Homelander feels something unfamiliar coil in his gut. Doubt. Because the man hasn't attacked him. He hasn't needed to. And for the first time, Homelander understands the feeling every god dreads most. Being measured and found unremarkable. This is the moment before the lie collapses. Vought will call it an anomaly. The news will call it a misunderstanding. Homelander will call it temporary. But none of that will matter. Because this man didn't come to conquer. He didn't come to rule. He didn't even come to fight. And that is what makes him dangerous. If you continue, you will watch a world built on manufactured supremacy confront something it cannot spin, sue, or intimidate. You will see heroes realize that strength is not the same as control, that dominance does not equal safety. Someone will lose their crown. Someone will lose their identity. And someone will discover that being the strongest thing in the room means nothing when a stronger thing doesn't care about the room at all. There is no reset after this. Only consequences. The boardroom is silent in the way only panic can create. Not shouting. Not confusion. Restraint. Screens line the walls, each replaying the same moment from a different angle. Omni-Man hovering over Manhattan. Homelander's heat vision stopping midair. The flick of a wrist. The van folding. Ashley Barrett hasn't blinked in 30 seconds. Run it again, she says. Someone hesitates, not because they didn't hear her, but because they already know it won't change. The footage plays again. Homelander's smile. The beams. Nothing. A hand tightens around a pen. It snaps. That's impossible, a senior analyst whispers. Nothing stops his heat vision. We've tested. Tested against what? Someone else snaps back. Missiles, sups, protesters with signs. Ashley finally turns. Enough. The room stills instantly. This man didn't deflect the beams, she says slowly. He didn't counter them. He didn't absorb them. She swallows. He ignored them. That word lands heavier than any explosion. Cut to the sky. Homelander floats alone now, high above the city, camera drones keeping a respectful distance. His breathing is steady, too steady. The smile is gone, replaced by something tighter, calculated. He touches his cheek, where the red blur passed earlier. Nothing there. That was cute, he says into the calm, forcing a laugh. Whoever he is, he got lucky. No response. Vought control, he repeats, louder. Static crackles. Then a voice, measured, careful. Copy Homelander, we're assessing. Assessing. The word needles him. He scans the skyline, senses stretched wide. Heartbeats, sirens, fear, all familiar, comforting. But the presence from before that pressure is gone. Not fled. Withdrawn. And somehow that feels worse. Omni-Man lands 5 blocks away, boots touching asphalt without a sound. The street is empty, not because he cleared it, but because instinct did. People moved without knowing why. Animals fled. Windows rattled. He looks around, taking in the city with a practiced eye. Density, infrastructure, response time. He notes the helicopters circling farther back. The way none of them come closer. Smart. A woman steps out from behind a police cruiser, hands raised, voice shaking but brave. Sir, are you a hero? Omni-Man studies her, sees the badge, the fear masked as authority. I'm not here for you, he says. It isn't cruel, it isn't kind. It's final. She nods quickly and retreats, relief flooding her so hard her knees nearly buckle. Above them, Homelander watches. He doesn't like this. He drops from the sky in a blur, landing hard enough to crater the street between them. Asphalt fractures outward. The shockwave shatters nearby windows. It's a statement, a reminder. Cameras pivot instantly. Omni-Man doesn't flinch. You didn't leave, Homelander says, grinning again, wider now, too wide. Good, means we can clear this up. Omni-Man looks at the ruined street, then at Homelander. You did that for effect, he says. Homelander's grin twitches. Yeah, that's kind of my thing. No, Omni-Man replies calmly. Your thing is being watched. The words hit harder than the beams ever could. Homelander's jaw tightens. You don't know anything about me. I know exactly what you are, Omni-Man says. You're the strongest thing this world has ever seen. Homelander relaxes slightly. Finally, someone gets it. And that's the problem, Omni-Man continues. You've never been challenged. The air thickens. You think you challenged me? Homelander asks, voice low. No, Omni-Man says. I think I startled you. That's when Homelander moves. Not a warning, not a threat. A full-force punch meant to end the conversation forever. The impact echoes across the city. And Omni-Man doesn't move. His feet slide back half an inch. That's it. The street behind him disintegrates. Buildings groan. A shockwave ripples outward, triggering car alarms for miles. Homelander stares at his own fist. Slowly, Omni-Man looks down at it too. You hit like someone who's never needed to improve, he says. Homelander roars and swings again, and again, faster, harder, each blow strong enough to pulp tanks. Omni-Man lets the first 3 land. Then he catches the 4th. The sound is wrong, too solid, too final. Homelander pulls, strains, snarls. Nothing. People are watching now, from rooftops, from phones, from behind broken glass. Omni-Man tightens his grip just enough. Homelander gasps. Not in pain. In disbelief. You're not the apex here, Omni-Man says quietly. You're just the loudest. He releases him and steps back. Homelander stumbles midair, regaining balance with visible effort. His chest heaves. His eyes dart, not at Omni-Man, but at the cameras. At the witnesses. At the crack in the myth. This isn't over, Homelander snaps. You don't get to just show up and… Omni-Man turns away. That hurts more than anything else. I wasn't talking to you, he says, addressing the city. I was talking to the system that built you. He lifts off, rising slowly, deliberately. Homelander doesn't follow. For the first time, he can't be sure how that would end. Below, the city exhales in shaken silence. And somewhere deep inside Homelander, something permanent shifts. Not fear. Something worse. The understanding that strength isn't enough when someone else defines the scale. Vought Tower doesn't panic. It calculates. Ashley Barrett stands at the head of the emergency strategy room, lights dimmed, screens glowing with slowed-down footage of Homelander being stopped. Not beaten, stopped. That distinction matters. It's the only thing keeping the stock from free-falling. Freeze it there, she says. The frame locks on Omni-Man's hand wrapped around Homelander's wrist. The angle is bad. The camera's caught too much. You can see the strain in Homelander's face, the split second where he realizes the punch didn't work. That moment, Ashley says, voice tight, that's the damage. No one argues. A PR director clears his throat. We can spin this, foreign soup, experimental durability, Homelander was. Testing, Ashley finishes, I know. She rubs her temples, but the problem isn't the narrative, it's him. The room knows who she means. Homelander hasn't answered a single call since the encounter. No interviews, no statements, no smiling reassurance to the public. He landed somewhere outside the city and disappeared from every feed. That absence is louder than any speech. Cut to a rural stretch of highway, miles from cameras and crowds. Homelander stands alone in a field, fists clenched so tight his gloves creak. The wind ripples the tall grass around him. Normally, he'd enjoy the quiet, the control. Today, it feels like judgment. He replays it again in his head. The impact, the resistance, the way Omni-Man looked at him, not impressed, not afraid. Measured. You don't get to do that, Homelander mutters to the empty sky. You don't get to show up and make me look. He stops himself, breathing hard. Make him look what? Weak. No, worse. Replaceable. He takes off in a sonic blur, punching through clouds, climbing higher than he ever needs to. Up where the air thins and the world shrinks. Up where nothing is supposed to challenge him. And still he feels watched. Not by Omni-Man. By the idea he left behind. Across the city, Omni-Man stands on the roof of an abandoned high-rise, looking down at Manhattan like a map instead of a home. He listens, not just with hearing but with experience. The rhythms of power, the response times, the way authority hesitates when it doesn't know who's in charge. This world is fragile in a familiar way. Behind him, Billy Butcher steps out of the shadows, rifle raised but not aimed. He knows better. Everyone in his crew knows better. So, Butcher says, voice rough, you gonna turn me into paste or we having a chat? Omni-Man doesn't turn around. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have finished that sentence. Butcher smirks despite himself. Right, good, love a man who gets straight to the point. He steps closer, boots scraping concrete. You made quite the impression today. Shook the golden boy, that don't happen. No, Omni-Man agrees, it doesn't. Silence stretches, the city hums below. You here to save us, Butcher asks finally, or conquer us? Omni-Man considers the question, longer than Butcher expects. I'm here to evaluate, he says. Butcher laughs once, sharp, that's not reassuring. It shouldn't be, Omni-Man replies. Your world has relied on unstable gods for too long. You mistake power for protection. Butcher's expression hardens. Funny, that's exactly what I say about him. For the first time, Omni-Man turns and looks at him properly, not dismissive, curious. You hate him, Omni-Man observes. I hate what he does, Butcher says, and what he gets away with. Omni-Man nods slowly. Then we understand each other. Butcher stiffens. Careful, sounding like you're recruiting. I don't recruit, Omni-Man says. I remove variables. That sends a chill down Butcher's spine. Before he can respond, the air changes. Pressure, heat. A familiar presence returning, heavier than before. Omni-Man looks up. Homelander descends from the clouds like a falling star, slower this time, controlled. Cameras trail him now. He wants them to see this. He lands across the rooftop, eyes locked on Omni-Man. You don't get to talk about me behind my back, Homelander says. Omni-Man doesn't move. Butcher takes a step back. Well, I'll just give you lads some space. He retreats quickly, knowing exactly when he's outmatched. Homelander cracks his neck. I thought about what you said, about me being loud. His smile returns, but it's different now, sharper, defensive. So let's make something clear, he continues. This is my world. These people look to me. You don't get to rewrite that. Omni-Man studies him. You're right, he says. I don't. Homelander blinks. That's not what he expected. You do, Omni-Man adds, every day with fear. The smile drops completely. I'm done talking, Homelander snarls. He lunges again, faster than before, no restraint this time. No show, just raw, desperate force. Omni-Man meets him head-on. This time, he doesn't hold back. The collision tears the sky open, a thunderclap rolling across the city as both vanish in a streak of motion, through buildings, through airspace, through the illusion that this fight can be contained. Miles away, Vought alarms begin to scream. Ashley watches the feeds cut out one by one. No, she whispers, no, no, no. Because this time, the battle isn't happening in public. It's happening somewhere no one can spin. And as the last signal dies, one truth becomes unavoidable. Whatever happens next will permanently redefine who controls this world. The impact registers before the sound does. A shockwave rolls across the outskirts of the city, flattening trees, rattling windows, and knocking birds from the sky like discarded thoughts. Somewhere between the skyline and the countryside, two figures carve trenches through earth and concrete, their collision less a fight than a correction being forced upon reality. Homelander slams into the side of a quarry wall hard enough to crater it, stone exploding outward in a gray bloom. He tears himself free with a roar, blood running from his nose for the first time in years. The sight of it, real blood, makes his breath hitch. He wipes it away, staring at his fingers. No, he mutters, no, that's not. Omni-Man hits him again before the sentence finishes. Not with rage, not with flair. With intent. The punch lands square in Homelander's chest and drives him through the quarry floor, down into layers of rock that haven't seen light in millennia. The force compresses the air from his lungs in a soundless scream. For a fraction of a second, Homelander experiences something unfamiliar. Helpless descent. He crashes into the bedrock and lies there, stunned, the world ringing. Dust pours down around him like ash. He tries to push up. His body responds slower than it should. Above, Omni-Man hovers in the settling debris, cape drifting, eyes calm. This isn't combat to him. It's assessment under pressure. You rely on intimidation, Omni-Man says, voice carrying effortlessly through the fractured stone. You've never had to refine anything else. Homelander snarls and launches upward, heat vision already burning, twin beams slicing through the rock like molten blades. Omni-Man doesn't dodge. He tilts his head just enough for the beams to scrape past, searing the wall behind him. Homelander reaches him and grabs his throat. I kill gods, Homelander spits. I am the end of the food chain. Omni-Man's eyes narrow, not in fear but disappointment. You don't know what that means. He twists, breaks the grip with a movement too precise to be accidental, and drives his knee into Homelander's spine. Something cracks. Homelander screams as they slam back into open air, spiraling upward in a violent corkscrew. High above them, the clouds part. Far below, the world watches nothing, only the aftereffects, shockwaves without explanation, silence where commentary should be. Inside Vought Tower, executives stare at dead screens and rising stock alerts with equal dread. Ashley grips the table, knuckles white. "Get me anything," she snaps. "Military channels, satellites, I don't care if it's a weather balloon." A technician cuts her off, voice trembling. "We're getting something, audio only, it's not filtered." She freezes, "Play it." The speakers crackle, then fill with distorted wind and distant impacts, and underneath it, voices. Homelander's voice is strained, breathing hard, angry. Omni-Man's is steady. "You think love makes you strong," Omni-Man says through the static, "but you don't love them, you need them." There's a pause, then a sound like something massive colliding with something fragile. "I protect them," Homelander roars, "they need me." "No," Omni-Man replies, "you need an audience." Ashley closes her eyes. Somewhere else in a dim safe house filled with flickering monitors, Billy Butcher listens too. His jaw tightens, not with fear but grim satisfaction. "Go on," he mutters. "Say it out loud, you cape-wearing psycho." Back in the sky, Homelander charges again, wild now, punches thrown without rhythm. He's faster than most things alive, stronger than anything he's ever faced. But Omni-Man is experienced. He catches Homelander's wrist mid-swing and holds it there. The grip tightens, crushing bone. Homelander screams not theatrically, reflexively. "This is what happens," Omni-Man says quietly, "when power is never challenged." He hurls Homelander downward. The fall ends in a distant explosion as Homelander crashes into a mountain ridge, carving a smoking trench through solid stone. The shockwave ripples outward, triggering landslides miles away. Omni-Man descends slowly, landing at the edge of the devastation. Homelander lies at the center of it, struggling to rise, coughing, cape torn, costume ruined. His eyes dart, not searching for a target but for witnesses. There are none. No cameras, no cheering crowds, no terrified faces looking up at him for salvation. Just Omni-Man. "You could have been better," Omni-Man says, standing over him, "but you chose comfort over growth." Homelander laughs weakly. "You think you've won." Omni-Man tilts his head. "This isn't victory." He leans closer, voice low. "It's exposure." Homelander's laughter dies as the meaning sinks in. Because for the first time in his life, he understands something terrifying. This fight isn't about who wins. It's about who defines power when the illusion collapses. And as Omni-Man steps back, giving him space instead of finishing him, Homelander realizes the worst part. He's been spared. Not out of mercy, but because being allowed to live with this knowledge hurts more. The mountain groans around them, unstable, ready to give way. And somewhere deep inside Homelander, something breaks that can never be put back together. Homelander doesn't rise. That alone is wrong enough to feel unreal. He lies half-buried in shattered stone, chest heaving, every breath shallow and sharp. Pain blooms across his body in places he didn't know could hurt. Not surface pain, not the kind he can sneer through on camera. This is deep, structural, the kind that tells him something inside is misaligned, cracked, refusing to obey. Above him, Omni-Man waits. Not hovering now, standing, feet planted on broken rock like he belongs there. The silence stretches. Wind whistles through the torn mountainside. Dust drifts slowly, catching the light. For a moment, just a moment, Homelander considers not moving at all, letting the world believe whatever it wants, letting this thing pass. But the thought curdles instantly. If he stays down, it becomes true. He snarls and forces himself upright, every muscle screaming in protest. His legs shake, but they hold. Barely. He wipes blood from his mouth, smearing it across his cheek like war paint. "You don't get it," Homelander says, voice hoarse. "This world runs on me." Omni-Man watches him with something close to pity. "No," he says, "it hides behind you." Homelander's eyes flare red. Heat vision erupts again, brighter this time, fueled by desperation rather than control. The beams tear across the mountainside, vaporizing stone, igniting debris. Omni-Man moves fast, efficient, slipping past the beams, closing the distance in a heartbeat. He strikes Homelander's solar plexus with an open palm. The impact doesn't explode outward, it collapses inward. Homelander doubles over, gasping, the air ripped from his lungs. Omni-Man follows with a blow to the jaw that sends him skidding across the rock like a discarded toy. Homelander tumbles, comes to rest near the edge of a sheer drop. Below him, nothing but mist and distance. "You're strong," Omni-Man says, approaching slowly, "but you've never learned restraint or patience or sacrifice." Homelander pushes himself backward inch by inch, eyes locked on Omni-Man. Fear flickers there now, naked and unfiltered. "You don't scare me," he lies. Omni-Man stops a few steps away. "I know." That's what breaks him. Homelander screams and charges, tackling Omni-Man mid-sentence. They go over the edge together, vanishing into the abyss. The air tears past them as they plummet, grappling, striking, spinning. Homelander lands blow after blow, wild and furious. Omni-Man absorbs them, deflects, counters, not all at once, not brutally, just enough. Enough to teach. They crash into the canyon wall halfway down, clinging there like insects. Rock disintegrates around them. Omni-Man grips Homelander by the throat, holding him in place with one hand. "Look at you," Omni-Man says calmly. "You don't even know why you're fighting anymore." Homelander claws at the grip, vision blurring. I'm the hero." "No," Omni-Man replies, "you're the product." He releases him. Homelander falls alone this time, slamming into the canyon floor in a thunderous impact that sends a shockwave rippling outward. He lies there, staring up at the sliver of sky far above, chest barely rising. Minutes pass, or seconds. Time feels slippery. Omni-Man descends and lands a short distance away, dust puffing around his boots. He doesn't move closer, doesn't gloat, doesn't finish it. Instead, he looks around. The destruction, the scars in the land, the quiet aftermath. "This world," Omni-Man says, more to himself now, "is brittle." Homelander laughs weakly from the ground. "Then break it." Omni-Man turns back to him. "That's the difference between us," he says. "I don't break worlds without purpose." He steps closer, looming now. "And you don't even know what yours is." Homelander tries to speak, tries to argue, but the words won't come, because buried beneath the pain, beneath the rage, beneath the fear, there's a realization forming, slow, inevitable. For the first time in his life, someone stronger didn't want his throne. They didn't want his adoration. They didn't even want his death. They wanted him to understand. Omni-Man turns away. "This isn't over," he says, "not because you'll come after me." He pauses, just long enough for the words to sink in. "But because now you know what you are." He lifts off, vanishing upward in a blur, leaving Homelander alone at the canyon floor, broken, exposed, and unseen. Far away, ripples spread. Vought's control fractures, governments panic, whispered contingency plans activate. And in Homelander's mind, one thought loops endlessly, louder than the pain. If he's not the apex, then what happens when the world realizes it too? The first thing the world notices is the silence. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind that follows an explosion or a broadcast blackout. This silence creeps in slowly, seeping into places where noise used to live. Vaught's press rooms delay statements. News anchors stall mid-sentence. Social media fills with speculation instead of certainty. For the first time in years, no one knows what to say about Homelander. Because there is no footage. There are fragments, yes, shaky satellite images, a few distant civilian recordings that cut out at the worst possible moments, heat signatures that spike and then vanish, but nothing definitive, nothing Vought can package, nothing that shows him winning. That absence becomes louder than any scream. Homelander is alive. That much is confirmed. He staggers back into the sky hours later, flying low, uneven, never breaking the cloud line. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't land in front of cameras. He disappears into one of Vaught's private facilities like a wounded animal crawling into a den. Inside, the mirrors are gone. Not broken, removed. The medical wing smells like antiseptic and fear. Doctors work quickly, carefully, eyes down. No one makes jokes. No one offers reassurance. They run scans they don't fully understand and avoid saying words like damage or limit. Homelander lies on the table, staring at the ceiling, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles split. Every breath reminds him. The pain is still there. Not fatting, not healing the way it should. He squeezes his eyes shut and Omni-Man's voice echoes uninvited in his skull. Calm, certain, worse than screaming. You don't even know why you're fighting anymore. Get out, Homelander snaps suddenly. The room freezes. I said get out. They don't argue. They never do. The doctors and technicians scatter, leaving him alone with the hum of machines and the weight of something he can't burn away. Across the world, others are adjusting too. Butcher watches the same grainy footage on a loop, jaw tight, cigarette forgotten between his fingers. He's seen monsters bleed before. He's made a career out of it. But this is different. This isn't a crack in the mask. This is the mask being pulled off entirely, even if only for a moment. Well, I'll be fucked, he mutters. Nearby, Huey doesn't look relieved. He looks uneasy. He didn't kill him. That's what worries me, Butcher replies. In a secured underground chamber, Vaught's upper leadership gathers in hushed panic. Plans stack on plans, contingencies built on assumptions that no longer hold. Homelander was supposed to be the end of the flowchart, the final escalation, the thing you don't plan past. Now there is a past him. And somewhere above all of them, Omni-Man observes. Not from orbit, not from some distant, godlike perch. He moves through the world quietly, deliberately. He listens. He watches how quickly systems strain when their strongest pillar wobbles. He studies how humans react not to destruction, but to uncertainty. This isn't his mission. Not yet. But it is information. He sees militaries posture and hesitate. Sees heroes argue behind closed doors. Sees civilians feel something unfamiliar creeping in beneath their fear. Doubt. Homelander finally stands again days later, alone in a private chamber overlooking the city. The skyline glows like it always has, indifferent to his crisis. He presses a hand to the glass. The city doesn't look smaller. He does. For the first time, he doesn't feel like flying out there and reminding it who he is. He feels watched, measured, and somewhere deep, beneath the rage and the pride, a question forms that terrifies him more than Omni-Man ever could. If someone stronger exists, what happens when they decide not to leave? Homelander breaks first in private. Not on camera, not in front of crowds, not with heat vision or screams or blood. He breaks in the quiet hours before dawn, standing alone in a room designed to make him feel untouchable. The city below still sleeps. The glass around him is reinforced beyond reason. Everything here was built to reassure him that he is above consequence. It isn't working anymore. He lifts his hand, palm glowing faintly red, and presses it against the window. The glass holds. It always does. Normally, that would calm him. Normally, it would remind him that even the strongest barriers exist because of him. Instead, his hand trembles. He pulls it back, breathing hard, and laughs under his breath. The sound is thin. Wrong. Get it together, he mutters, but the words don't carry authority anymore. They sound like a suggestion. Elsewhere, the world doesn't wait for him. Vought's analysts track Omni-Man's movements as best they can, which is to say, poorly. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't stay in one place long enough to be cornered. He appears in conflict zones, disaster areas, places where power vacuums form naturally. He doesn't intervene often. When he does, it's precise, surgical. He stops threats without spectacle and leaves before anyone can decide how to feel about it. That restraint unsettles people more than destruction ever could. Soldier Boy watches the reports with a scowl, cracking open another beer he doesn't need. That's not a hero, he says. That's a problem. Starlight disagrees quietly. He didn't hurt civilians. He didn't even kill. Homelander, Butcher finishes for her, which is exactly the bloody issue. They all understand it now, even if no one says it out loud. Omni-Man didn't win by force alone. He won by refusing to play the game the way everyone else does. No branding, no speeches, no fear theatrics. Just capability. And restraint. That combination spreads unease faster than terror ever could. Homelander finally leaves the tower again days later, not in a blaze of light, but slipping into the sky like he hopes no one notices. He doesn't go to a disaster. He doesn't confront Omni-Man. He doesn't even check in with Vought. He goes somewhere smaller, quieter, a rural town, no cameras, no crowd. He lands behind a grocery store, adjusts his suit, and walks inside like a normal person. The bell above the door rings. A cashier looks up, freezes, and then forces a smile that's just a little too stiff. Homelander feels it. The hesitation. The doubt. That tiny delay where all used to live. "Hey," he says too casually, "how's it going?" The cashier nods quickly. "Good, sir. Fine." "Sir." Not Homelander, not America's greatest hero, just sir. Something inside him tightens. He leaves without buying anything. High above, Omni-Man watches a different scene entirely. A military exercise aborted mid-drill, when commanders realized their weapons wouldn't even slow him down. A room full of leaders arguing over whether appeasement or aggression would be worse. A scientist quietly deleting old projections because they no longer apply. This world, Omni-Man thinks, is beginning to adapt. That is both impressive and dangerous, because adaptation breeds escalation. Homelander returns to the sky that night and stops halfway up, hovering, unsure where to go next. The city lights blur beneath him. For the first time, he doesn't feel like the ceiling of this world. He feels like the floor. And somewhere beyond his sight, Omni-Man turns his attention inward, weighing choices he hasn't had to make in years. This universe isn't his enemy, but it might become his responsibility. And that realization carries a weight even he doesn't take lightly. The first public confrontation does not happen in a battlefield. It happens in a conference room. Glass walls, polished steel, flags arranged with mathematical care, the kind of place where wars are delayed by paperwork and lives are measured in acceptable losses. Omni-Man stands at the center of it, not restrained, not threatened, not even surrounded in any meaningful way. The weapons aimed at him are ceremonial at best. Everyone in the room knows it. That knowledge changes how they breathe. A general clears his throat and begins a rehearsed statement about jurisdiction, cooperation, and mutual interests. Omni-Man listens politely, hands clasped behind his back, posture relaxed. He lets the words fill the space until they run out on their own. "You're afraid," Omni-Man says calmly. The general stiffens. "We're cautious." "No," Omni-Man replies. You're afraid because your strongest deterrent failed. Silence answers him. On a monitor behind the table, Homelander's image flickers, archived footage from better days. Smiling, victorious, untouchable, Omni-Man glances at it only once. He was never your control, Omni-Man continues. He was your excuse. The room reacts subtly. A shift in chairs, a tightening of jaws, someone lowers their eyes. This is not how power is supposed to be addressed. Not so directly, not without flattery or fear. "And what are you?" a woman finally asks. Her voice is steady, but her knuckles are white against the table. Omni-Man meets her gaze, a variable you cannot contain. That lands harder than any threat. Elsewhere, Homelander watches the broadcast on a private feed, fists clenched, teeth grinding. The rage is there. It always is. But it's tangled now with something messier, something he hates more. Irrelevance. They're talking to him, Homelander snarls. They're negotiating. He smashes a screen, the glass shatters, sparks flying. No one rushes in, no one dares. For the first time, he understands that the room he's in is a cage. A golden one, but a cage all the same. Omni-Man leaves the meeting without incident. No deals struck. No alliances formed. Just a quiet understanding left behind like a bruise. The world's leaders now know two things with absolute certainty. They cannot stop him. And they cannot ignore him. That night, chaos ripples outward. Militaries reposition. Vought's stock wavers. Smaller heroes start making reckless choices, desperate to prove they still matter. The boys move too, chasing rumors, following patterns, trying to figure out what Omni-Man wants before he decides for himself. Omni-Man hovers above the ocean, listening to it crash endlessly below. He thinks about his own world, about orders given, about duties fulfilled without question. This universe is softer, messier, but also stubborn in ways he didn't expect. It resists being ruled. Homelander finally snaps. He tears out of Vought Tower in a sonic boom, not toward Omni-Man, but toward the city itself. He stops a burning building, saves a bus full of children, smiles for a camera he pretends not to see. The performance is flawless. But the crowd's reaction is. They cheer, but they also glance upward, as if expecting someone else to arrive, as if measuring him against a shadow he can't escape. Homelander hears it, feels it, and it drives him mad. Far above, Omni-Man senses the shift in the air, not fear this time. Competition. He exhales slowly. This is the dangerous part, he murmurs. Because now, the strongest man in the room isn't trying to win. He's trying to be seen. Homelander's return to the spotlight is relentless. He doesn't just save people, he curates the saves, chooses disasters that burn brightly on screens, chooses moments that demand applause, fires, collapsing bridges, hijacked planes. Each intervention ends the same way, him hovering above the wreckage, arms open, chest out, daring the world to remember who he is. It almost works. Ratings climb. Vought's media machine scrambles to reclaim the narrative, flooding feeds with heroic montages and triumphant music. Analysts talk about course correction. Commentators call it a resurgence. For a moment, the world feels familiar again. But underneath the noise, something is wrong. People still look up. Not at him. Past him. Omni-Man does not respond. He doesn't counterperform. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't challenge Homelander's displays. He simply continues moving through the world like gravity itself, present, inevitable, uninterested in applause. That indifference gnaws at Homelander more than hatred ever could. He confronts Omni-Man at last in the sky above the Atlantic, streaking in with a roar of displaced air. Clouds tear apart around them. The ocean churns far below. This time, there is no audience, no cameras, just the two of them suspended between Earth and space. "You don't get to ignore me," Homelander snarls. Omni-Man turns slowly. I was. They collide. The impact sends shockwaves rippling across the clouds. Homelander fights harder this time, smarter even. He anticipates strikes, redirects momentum, pushes himself past pain. Rage fuels him, but so does desperation. Omni-Man meets him blow for blow. Not overpowering him, matching him. Teaching again. Every clash rewrites the hierarchy a fraction more. Homelander realizes it mid-fight. Omni-Man isn't trying to win decisively. He's letting Homelander see the gap, letting him feel how close he comes and how far he still is. Why? Homelander shouts between strikes. Why won't you just finish it? Omni-Man blocks a punch and holds him there, foreheads nearly touching. Because this world doesn't need another tyrant, he says quietly, and it doesn't need you pretending you aren't one. The words hit harder than the blows. Homelander pulls back, stunned. For a heartbeat, he hesitates, and in that hesitation something breaks inside him, not physically but ideologically. The lie he's told himself since birth fractures. He's not the protector. He's the threat they tolerated. Omni-Man releases him and backs away. You can keep playing hero, he says, or you can decide what you actually are. He leaves again, vanishing into the upper atmosphere, leaving Homelander alone with the truth and the sky pressing down on him. Below them, governments finalize emergency protocols. Vought initiates last resort measures. The boys realize they're running out of time to choose sides they never wanted. And somewhere in the vast distance between stars and sea, Omni-Man considers the final question he's been avoiding. If this world collapses under the weight of its own gods, will he intervene? Or will he let it fall? The answer is coming. And nothing will be the same once it does. The world does not end with fire. It ends with decisions. Quiet ones made in rooms without windows by people who finally understand how small they are. The kind of decisions that don't make headlines but redraw history anyway. Omni-Man's presence has accelerated everything. Alliances form too quickly. Protocols written for nuclear war are rewritten for something worse. Not extinction, replacement. Homelander feels it before anyone tells him. Vought stops calling. Not completely, not officially, but the tone changes. Conversations shorten. Meetings get postponed. People stop asking what he thinks and start informing him what's already been decided. He's still the face, still the symbol, but symbols don't sit at the table when survival is being discussed. He hovers above the city one last time, cape snapping in the wind, waiting for the familiar surge of certainty that never comes. The skyline doesn't bow. The crowd below looks ordinary, too ordinary. He realizes with a jolt of panic that if he disappeared tonight, the world would grieve and then adapt. That thought terrifies him more than Omni-Man ever did. Omni-Man, meanwhile, watches the planet the way a general studies a battlefield just before the final order. He has seen worlds like this before. Worlds that confuse freedom with spectacle and power with virtue. Worlds that crumble slowly, not from invasion, but from contradiction. This is where it always turns, he murmurs. The boys move first. Not to attack Omni-Man, not to confront Homelander. They leak everything. Vaught's secrets, the lies, the bodies buried under marketing campaigns. They push it all into the light at once, betting everything on chaos because at least chaos is honest. The reaction is immediate. Trust collapses. Protests erupt. Heroes vanish. And in the middle of it all, Homelander is forced to watch as the world finally sees him without filters or music or editing. They don't chant his name. They argue about him, debate him, reduce him to a problem that needs managing. He snaps. Not violently, not yet. He goes looking for Omni-Man. He finds him hovering above a desolate stretch of land, watching storms roll in from the horizon. This time, Homelander doesn't attack. He doesn't threaten. He floats there, arms slack, posture uncertain. "You win," Homelander says quietly. Omni-Man doesn't turn. This was never about winning. Homelander swallows. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to do." That's the moment Omni-Man finally looks at him. Not as an enemy, not as a lesson, but as a consequence. "You decide," he says. "You always could. That's what makes this worse." Below them, thunder cracks. Omni-Man senses it then, the shift, the point of no return. This world has reached the moment where power must either justify itself or be removed. And whatever choice Homelander makes next will not just define him. It will decide what kind of world survives him. The storm reaches them before either of them moves. Wind lashes across the open land, bending grass flat, tearing dust from the earth and hurling it skyward. Thunder rolls low and heavy, not dramatic, not cinematic, just pressure. The kind that settles into bones and refuses to leave. Homelander floats there, arms at his sides, cape snapping uselessly behind him. For once, it doesn't make him feel larger. Omni-Man watches the horizon, eyes narrowing slightly as the clouds stack and darken. He has seen this moment on other worlds. Not this storm, not this planet, but this choice. The pause before history commits to a direction it can never reverse. "You think this ends if I stop?" Homelander asks. His voice is quieter than Omni-Man expects, not weak, just stripped of performance. "No," Omni-Man replies. "I think it ends if you understand why you started." Homelander laughs once, bitter and short. "I didn't start anything, I was made." Omni-Man finally turns fully toward him. "So was I." The words land differently than anything else has. There's no accusation in them, no superiority, just fact. Homelander searches his face for mockery and finds none. That unsettles him more than rage ever could. Below them, the world continues to fracture. Vought's infrastructure collapses in real time as contracts are severed and protections withdrawn. Governments issue statements filled with empty reassurances. People argue in streets, on screens, in living rooms, about heroes, about monsters, about whether anyone should be allowed to stand above consequence ever again. Homelander feels it all like static in his skull. For years, fear kept him powerful. Love kept him relevant. Now both are slipping through his fingers, replaced by scrutiny, by judgment, by the unbearable realization that he is no longer the axis everything turns on. He looks at Omni-Man and, for the first time, doesn't see an enemy. He sees a mirror. "What happens," Homelander asks slowly, "if I don't fight you?" Omni-Man doesn't answer immediately. He considers the question carefully, because the answer matters more than the outcome ever did. "Then this world has a chance," he says, "not at peace, not at balance, but at choosing its future without gods deciding for it." Homelander closes his eyes. For a brief, terrifying moment, he imagines disappearing, not dying, just leaving, letting the world move on without him. The thought makes his chest tighten. His entire identity screams against it. Everything he is has been built to reject that possibility. But underneath that scream, there's something else. Relief. He opens his eyes. "I don't know how to be anything else," he admits. Omni-Man nods once. "Neither did I until I had to." The storm breaks fully then, rain hammering down in sheets, lightning tearing open the sky. Omni-Man lifts into the clouds, preparing to leave, not in retreat but in resolution. He has done what he came to do, even if he didn't know it at the start. Homelander remains where he is, rain soaking his suit, blurring the world around him. For the first time, he doesn't chase. He doesn't posture. He simply watches Omni-Man disappear into the storm. Below, the consequences begin to settle. Heroes lose their immunity. Institutions lose their masks. People stop waiting for saviors and start demanding answers. It's messy, painful, uncertain, but it's real. High above the planet, Omni-Man slows, looking back one last time. This world did not submit. It did not shatter. It adapted, and that more than anything surprises him. As for Homelander, he descends slowly, landing among people who no longer look at him with blind awe. Some are afraid. Some are angry. Some are simply tired. He feels all of it, and for once doesn't burn it away. The age of unquestioned gods is over. What comes next will hurt, but it will be honest. And for the first time, this world belongs to itself.